Welcome back to another human design chart reading. This reading is really juicy. And if you are a 3-5 emotional projector, you're going to resonate with some of this. But especially if you have guilt motivation, this chart reading is really going to help you understand the nuances of what it means to be a projector with guilt motivation. So let's pop up the chart and dive in. This chart is of May's, and her question is, why do I keep missing the opportunity? How can I not miss the opportunity in the future? And essentially, how she feels from her intake form is that there were so many opportunities in the online space, which is where she is in. She's an astrologer, a very talented astrologer, and she views that 2020 was the prime time to get into the online space to build a business, and she's worried that she's missed the boat. So let's dive into where there are so many nuances in her chart around why she is missing out on the opportunities. This is going to be a little bit more of an advanced human design reading because this is a client that I have worked with for a good couple of years. She is very knowledgeable in astrology and human design, being a reader herself. And so I really wanted to see things from a different perspective in her chart that would be able to help her give tangible resources and steps to follow so that she can feel more in alignment with her pathway. And I know that being an entrepreneur myself, we do always get to those points in our journeys where we question if what we're doing is meant for us. Now, being a projector, you are here to obviously wait for the invitation. And as an entrepreneur, I think that sometimes that gets taken a little bit too literally, and projectors then sit on the back burner waiting for the signed, sealed, delivered, handwritten note from the universe itself before taking action. And in your chart, especially with the channel of transformation, you are here to work hard, but to understand that balance of what it means to work hard and see the results of your labor and also then maintain your energy needs. So I do understand that there is quite a lot of push-pull energy in this chart. In saying your energy needs as well, in talking about your energy needs as well, just remember that you are an energy projector. Because you've got your solar plexus defined, because you've got your root center defined, that means you are an energy projector. And so, yes, rest is important, and to understand when your body needs that replenishment will be of great benefit. But I don't want you to think that being a projector means that you have to only work 4 hours a day and you have to live by these confines. You get to experiment. That's why living in your human design, we call it the great experiment, because you are experimenting with your design. And because you've got a 3-5 profile line as well, that 3 is wanting you to test and try out different things to see what actually works for you. So with being a projector and receiving the invitation for the opportunities, how it will be presented. And this is where we start to get more nuanced in your self-theme and not self-theme by looking into your motivation. And this is the way you will look at the world. And I can see this in you, having known you for so many years, through and through and through. You are motivated by guilt. And this might sound a little bit strange. And I'm going to talk a lot about the transference as well, because I think we will know more when we are living out of alignment versus when we are living in alignment. Because when we are living in alignment, it just feels easy. And when things feel easy, we don't really stop to question things because life is just unfolding so beautifully for us. Whereas when things are challenging, when things are not working, when things are not flowing, that's when we gain more awareness. That's when we ask ourselves better questions. That's when we take a moment to deeply reflect within ourselves. So your motivation is guilt. And essentially, guilt motivation is the beautiful ability to see what is not working. It's a fifth line energy. And again, you've got a lot of fifth line energy in your chart. And fifth line energy is all about problem solving. It's about bringing solutions to the collective to help solve a greater scale problem. It's also guilt motivation is very much about wanting to make sure that the things it's fixing is going to help the collective. written all over your chart. You've got that humbleness, you've got that grace, you want to benefit people around you. And so what are the things that you are seeing that aren't working? Now, I know that you have seen these things not working in the past. And I think that this is where the contradiction comes in, because you see these things not working and you're like, but how do I tell people when they haven't invited me? So this is where we need to start looking at, how are you recognizing yourself? And recognition for a projector is not just about recognizing the things that you're really good at. Recognizing yourself as a projector means that you get to go to the depths of who you are and understand your shadows, understand yourself on that level too. Because when you understand your shadows, you're also going to understand why people may come to you. Now, just to go through some of the shadows in your incarnation cross, and your incarnation cross is really interesting because it is the right angle cross of rulership. Now, even just that name itself should evoke a feeling and the sense of you really are here to be a leader. This incarnation cross, you've got the gate of grace as your conscious sun. And again, with that projector energy, if you don't know how to lead yourself with grace and being humble and generosity, which I see you living in alignment with so beautifully, you are the most generous person I think I've ever come across. But if you don't live in that generosity, that's when you'll fall into your not self theme. And you'll also find that people will disgrace you out of your business, essentially. So it's really about, how can you lead in your business? And you're going to lead by talking about the problems that you're seeing in front of you so that you can solve them. And how you do this as a projector is that you ask for the invitation. So when you're talking about things on social media, for example, anybody that is following you has already given you that invitation by following you. And I want you to deeply see that. That is the invitation. If you are in an environment, and again, that channel of transformation is very much about connecting with people, because you, and it's written all over your chart, you need the right connections and the right allies in your environment in order to help you bring the transformation to the world that you aim to see. And this is why you are so good at connecting with others, because those connections are invaluable to where you want to go. Now, with those connections and with all of these things that you're doing in your business, you get to ask for the invitation. So perhaps you're on a call with somebody and they're talking about how they want to create a new course and they're wanting to put it on a specific platform. And you can see that that's not the way that they should be doing it. Instead of saying, well, you should be doing X, Y, and Z, that would land flat. But how you could rephrase and reword it is saying, I'm wondering if you wouldn't mind me giving you my perspective on what I see working really well in your situation. And if they say, listen, I'd rather you not, because that might be their boundary, they're not ready for your insights yet. But if they say, yes, I would love your insights, that's when you can openly share your opinions. What they do with that afterwards is their own discernment, that's their own choices, but that is how you're going to start to express the things that you see. And the more that you can express that, is the more that you'll then recognize the solutions that you have within you. And that's when others will recognize you too, and you'll be the person that they come to for the solutions that you're providing. Let's talk about the transference of guilt motivation, because that is hope. And this is what I also see you living in a lot as well. And it's a really interesting one, because hope is when we give up our control to the universe. And again, this is going to be very paradoxical in nature, because I know that when we speak about manifestation, we say that the how is not up to us, the how is up to the universe. And so we need to trust in that greater force. But for guilt motivation with the hope transference, when you give up control and believe that something greater will fix the problems for you, that is when you're living out of alignment. And that is when you will feel bitter, because you're living in the state of hope of like, it's going to work out, it's going to happen. But you are somebody that needs to actively take control of things. So it's about holding the vision and then seeing the things that come up into your environment as the invitation from the universe, because sometimes the invitation is so subtle. Sometimes I've spoken to projectors where they were listening to a podcast and that's how they found out about human design. And that was the invitation to discover human design and go down the rabbit hole of this beautiful modality. Seeing the invitations that come up in your environment on a continuous basis is what you then get to use your emotions or your emotional authority to ride out the wave, to then know what is right for you to work on in terms of that problem solvingness. But you have to take that action. And with that third line as your conscious profile line as well, the way through entrepreneurship is to take messy action to see what is working and what is not working, so that the solutions that you do bring forward are going to be the things that will really change the planet. Hope motivation has also been described in a way that if you ever walk, and I know that this is going to resonate for you with work that you've done and your life experiences that you've lived, but when you're in a hospital, there is that general hope of like, I don't know how this is going to work out, but there's this hope that it will. And that hope for you specifically is actually in your not self theme. When you are able to understand what problems are in front of you and you're actively working to fix them with the solutions that you are bringing to the table, that is when you're going to be living more in alignment. And just knowing that the things that you'll be using to fix the problem, there'll be a bit of a trial and error. And so it's really simple that, and I know we've spoken about, this before, and even in a previous reading I did for my YouTube channel, the third line has to build up a really healthy relationship with failure, because it's through trial and error that you're going to discover what works and what doesn't work for you. And with the third line as well, you've got it's interesting because you don't have a defined ego, and generally materialism and wealth and the need for great money lives there, but you're here to gain a lot of wisdom through that. However, your channel of transformation does love the material world. It does love luxury. It does love those things. Again, a beautiful push-pull energy where I know that you have sometimes had a bit of a pendulum swing between I want to focus on the money, but I also don't, it's not about the money. And I think it's because of that duality in your chart of you've got the undefined ego, but you've got the channel of transformation, and that brings about all of these different things. And then you've also got the channel of synthesis, and that's about understanding your sensitivity in the world and also to balance your own needs with understanding what your principles are. So it's making sure that your needs are met, but not overriding a principle. So again, what are your values? What are your principles that you have that you don't want to kind of override in building your business? You are a principled person. What are your values? How can you hold true to those values while also still ensuring that your needs are met and owning that you're here to experience a material plane and have the wealth that you desire? So I want to talk about your emotional authority, and specifically the two channels that you do have defined: the channel of synthesis, the channel of synthesis and the channel of transformation. It can almost feel like a bit of a push-pull energy. And if you even see like how it's on your charts, it's like this push-pull, but it's part of the same sort of scale. And like I always say that when we're talking about like a push-pull, sometimes we have temperatures of like hot and cold, yet it's the same scale. Kind of think of it in this way. So you've got the channel of synthesis, which is all about sensitivity, and it's about balancing your needs versus others' needs. And it is a channel that's a community channel. It's deeply rooted in making sure you're fed, the community's fed, and it is a channel that speaks specifically to food. You've then got the channel of transformation, which is also about the connections that you're making, but with work and working hard. And so I know that one of the things that you've had in your life is the question around working hard versus being in a relationship, and how do you synthesize the two together? Well, it's in your chart that you are learning how to gain that balance, because you're here to work really hard to bring things into the collective that are going to fix things and be the solution to those problems, as well as making sure that your needs are met so that you can feed the community and have those closeness in relationships and be sensitive and open to those connections that you're cultivating. With the channel of synthesis, you have a tribal emotional wave, and I've got a tribal emotional wave, and it's a really interesting one to have. When something happens in our lives that, triggers us, what we do is we go, okay, that was awful, but I'm just going to swallow it and be the bigger person here. And what happens is that we then build up, and we have an all explode moment. We let out all of the things that have been built up over time, and then we start again from scratch. And then we build this up. Ways that a tribal wave will really be able to calm down is through touch. So some days you might just need a hug. And that's when you can ask your partner, can I please just have a hug so that I can help regulate my nervous system, that I can help just calm down? And that's going to be really important for you. It's a beautiful conversation to have with your partner as well, because when they can see that the emotional wave is ramping up to just before you explode, they will have tools in their arsenal to help you also just recalibrate to yourself to let those things out. You may also find that with this emotional wave, as much as you want to be touched, sometimes depending on where you're at, if you're on a peak or a trough of your emotional wave, you want to touch things. And that could even be like boxing could be a really good outlet for you, because you're then having that contact with something to release the emotion that you're feeling. And I think that when you specifically get into a good relationship with your emotions and see everything as it all just fits together, it is all in harmony, even though there are dualities and there are these push pulls in your chart, when it all operates and forms this harmony within yourself, that's when you'll recognize your needs, when your needs are met, and you're meeting what you need first before you can feed the community. And that even comes into resources, right? When we think of the word generous, it's about giving. But if you don't have first, you can't give of yourself or even resources, monetary things like that first. Focus on income generating tasks within your business so that you do have the resources that you then can give more of yourself or more resources to others. But make sure that you're leading yourself first. And I truly believe that when you're recognizing the problems that you're here to solve and you're asking for those invitations and you're speaking from your truth and how you see things, which is going to be different. You've even got the channel of the gate, of insight. So you're going to be seeing things far beyond the time that people will be ready to hear it. But if you ask them and you cultivate relationships in a way where they ask you the right questions, and that's also going to help you recognizing yourself, then when you do impart information with people, it will land correctly. And when it lands correctly, that's when you will feel successful, because people will be recognizing you. And in turn, this beautiful transformation will happen in your life because you're now living more in accordance to your strategy and your authority. So yes, I just want you to see how nuanced your strategy and authority is, especially with guilt motivation. And to know that when you've given up your power into, I'm just going to trust that the universe is going to bring things to me, that's actually when you're living in your not self theme. And when you're living in your not self theme, it's, well, maybe you need to just go back to what are the problems in front of you that you can fix, and how can you actively do that through your trial and error process and lead yourself through that, because it's all going to lead you to the success that you are here to have. And business is a lot of messy action for a 3-5. It really, really is. It's also about, because you have so much community built into your chart, you need to understand boundaries in a very loving way. Boundaries are really going to help you come into the right agreements with people, because it is amplified in your chart in a couple of different areas, but you need to make sure that people know what they can expect of you. And in return, you need to ask people for things that you expect of them. And that's going to be mutually beneficial. And again, it goes back into that channel of transformation. Because you are able to see deeply into what others need, they'll also be able to see deeply into what you need. And this is why you are really good at making bargaining deals, like coaching trades and things like that. You are very naturally gifted at doing that. And it's because you can give equal value in return for their equal value. So how can you then use that in terms of bringing in money as well? And I think it's just about not worrying about missing the opportunity, but rather about being aware of when you are living in alignment with your human design versus when you are not. And yes, I go back to the self theme and not self theme, which is one of the more simple, constructs of human design. But when you are feeling successful, That is when you know that you are living in alignment. When you are seeing problems come up in front of you and you're able to express them in a way that it lands for people, that is when you're living in alignment. When you're not living in alignment, you're feeling bitter. And that's why you'll be feeling bitter toward the past, because you feel like you've missed the opportunity. And then you'll maybe be giving your power away to external sources, saying that the universe will just come in and help you manifest your desires. So that's when you know you're not living in alignment. How can you go back to expressing the problems that you're seeing right in front of you? And that's that guilt motivation that's really going to drive you into being aware of when you're living in your self theme versus your not self theme. The last thing I would encourage you to contemplate is Gene Key 47. In that, we've got oppression as the shadow and transmutation is the gift. Now, in oppression, you've either got feeling hopeless or in its repressive nature, or dogmatic in its reactive nature. So again, this goes back into that guilt motivation, because hopelessness is on the other end of the spectrum of this gene key, and it's in your conscious earth, which means this is the first shadow that you will come across time and time again. So when you're feeling completely overwhelmed with life, that's when you'll feel that sense of hopelessness, because everything is very overwhelming. Ask yourself again, how can you start to just feel successful? And you'll feel successful by looking at the problems that are in front of you, and you have that projector perspective, which makes you see things in a very different way. That is your gift. That is your God-given talent in this lifetime, is that you will see very different and unique ways of fixing the problem. So how can you go about really seeing how you get to fix your own problems by using this motivation? And then there's also the balance, because you don't want to be so controlling that you become that dogmatic person where you think that you can control the environment. So I think that I just want to caveat and really break down what it means to control in your design, because I don't want you to fall out of balance with what control for you would mean. The things that you can control is how much responsibility you get to take on any situation. And the responsibility that will be shown to you to take will be through the breadcrumbs that the universe shows you of the different areas where there are broken systems that will come up for you. Your unique insights will be able to see how you would bridge the gap of people's problems or have solutions to bring about a different way of thinking through that gate of insight into this world. When you are able to sense and see those problems and you're able then to ask for the invitation, that is what you can control. You cannot control how other people will react to that, though. You cannot control what situations will arise. So the problems and the things that will come up, you cannot control that. You can only control how much responsibility you get to take for what is shown in front of you. So it's really about, again, having that detachment of controlling the outcome of the action that you're taking, because that's when, if you're trying to control the outcome of the action that you're taking, that's when we're attached to the manifestation. And how can you just take ownership, maybe is a better word, maybe that more so than control, take ownership of the responsibility that you have. And that's what's going to be your guiding force. So I know that it's like so many blurred lines and so many edges that you'll get to meet yourself here at, but it's just about understanding the depths of what it is that you're seeing, and then having those beautifully articulated boundaries with others to ask them for the invitation. And again, stating, I see that this is something that's an area of concern for you, or it's a challenge for you. I've got a different way of looking at it. Can I share my perspective? And just by saying things like that on a continuous basis is really going to be helpful, as opposed to saying, this is what I'm seeing in the world right now, and if they just did this, it would be better. And that is your wisdom that you don't want to give away for free. Always remember that a projector has so much gold that they're sitting on within themselves. And when they know how to share that in a way that really lands, that's when their success will really come to be and bloom. I hope that this reading has given you a little bit more insight into why you may have missed the opportunity in the past. I hope that it shows you how you can grasp the opportunities that are coming to you. And for those that are wanting to have their human design chart read, the links are below this video. And I will see you in the next episode where I'll be doing an incredibly beautiful reading for a close friend that has breast cancer. And we'll be looking into her chart dynamics of how she gets to use this information to help her move into homeostasis and allow her body to heal.